Now, the Nigerian Communications Commission has officially launched the National Broadband Alliance for Nigeria, NBAN. That's a policy initiative that is set to expand internet access nationwide. The initiative targets key sectors, including schools, healthcare facilities, religious centers, and markets. And they say this is to create a sustainable model for widespread broadband adoption. Let's find out how the subnationals are keen into this. For this afternoon, we'll focus on Zamfara State as we have the Executive Secretary, Zamfara Information Technology and Development Agency, Dr. Habib Gajam. Dr. Gajam, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Great. So you were at this official launch, a launch that happened in Lagos of NBAN. Tell me, what are the prospects that you see as a state in this? Where do you key into this broadband plan by the federal government?
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, the National Broadband Alliance for Nigeria aims to bring in relevant stakeholders from across the country to collaborate and see how we can have a framework that facilitates broadband penetration, not just in the urban areas, but across unserved and underserved communities across the country. Now, for us as a state government, this actually could not have happened, at a better time, because we already have a plan in place to expand our communications and digital infrastructure, which is in line with the administration of His Excellency Governor Dauda Lawal's vision of, developing the ICT sector in the state. We recognize the very critical role that the infrastructure plays in expanding the digital economy sector in Zamfara State. And that is the reason why we are keen into this alliance. And we also have facilitated and drafted several policies that will attract investment in the fiber infrastructure. I'll give you a few examples. We have waived off right-of-way charges for telecom companies who are willing to do business in Zamfara State to come and invest. We are charging 0 naira per linear meter. We have also developed the draft policy for the Dig Once policy for Zamfara State. I don't think you have many other states that have actually done that. We have gone ahead to do that, to have a shared infrastructure, in fiber, in electricity, so that you can have a uniform duct. So every company, every fiber company that is willing to do business in Zamfara State, whether metropolitan or the backbone, they will have to follow a certain regulation and requirement that allows for sharing of infrastructure, because we are doing a lot of projects. The urban renewal program is ongoing, and we don't want to be, destroying already existing infrastructure in terms of roads and buildings. So that framework is in place, and this falls in line with the National Broadband Alliance for Nigeria.
So you talked about collaborators, and obviously the NBAN is about collaboration between different parties. Who are your partners in this? I'm just curious to know, this framework you're talking about, are people already connected to it? Is it just a vision still in the paper and all?
No, it's not just in the pipeline. So we are currently collaborating with a metropolitan network provider, which is Lagos-based. We have mapped out about 28 to 30 kilometers of fiber routes across the state capital. The target is to connect all government agencies, all public institutions, with uninterrupted internet access. And that is in line with our overall vision of deploying electronic governance platforms, so that we try and move faster than the rate we are in terms of removing certain bureaucratic bottlenecks that hinder the business of governance in Zamfara State. We are also, at the moment, we are connecting the government house, the state assembly, the state secretariat, the judiciary, other key public institutions like the specialist hospital, the Board of Internal Revenue, as well as the School of Nursing within Gusau Metropolis. This is just the first phase of the project, which is about 10 kilometers, and the rest of them will follow suit as soon as we finish this one. Beyond that, we are also collaborating with other telecom technology companies to bring network coverage to underserved and unserved communities, which ultimately or consequently will lead to an increase in financial activities and transactions across rural areas.
I hear you that once these public sectors are connected, supposed to ease work and then eventually attract the public sector, the private sector, beg your pardon. So I'm wondering, what's your strategy to attract the private sector? Because, even if you have this infrastructure that is working, you do need demand to be able to sustain it.
Yes, absolutely. You are right. So most of the projects that we have embarked on, we recognize that government cannot shoulder most of these responsibilities alone. So beyond just collaborating with public entities like the NCC, the Universal Services Provisions Fund, to ensure that we have more connections, across the state, we are also in another collaboration with BCN. We are still at the early stages of discussion, which is a backbone provider, to see how we can reach connectivity across not just the metropolis, but extended to other local government areas. Again, we are in discussion with several other last mile fiber companies to even connect homes, fiber to businesses, and all of that. Ours as a government is to create the enabling environment that will facilitate and attract investment in this area. And we have done so very keenly and very strategically. And that is the reason why in this particular first phase I was talking about, there's a GSM village within the Gusau metropolis, which is a market for hardware and computer hardware and software applications. We are also connecting them with uninterrupted internet access so that they find it easier to transact, not just locally, but even internationally. From overseas.
All right, Dr. Gajam, I hope you can hear me. But, connecting them is one thing. But we do know that for things like this, broadband, the infrastructure is a shared infrastructure. So I wonder what plan Zamfara State has to have an edge against other states, because if something goes wrong at the national or at the center, obviously Zamfara would be affected as well as other states. So are there plans to, stand out as a state, even though it's a shared infrastructure?
So anyone familiar with how the telecom, sector works? It's an ecosystem. There's no island. You can't claim to be an island, on your own. So certainly you have to leverage, one, the federal government in terms of, keying into the relevant policies and programs that will bring, the desired results that you need in your state. That is one. And that is one of the key things that the federal government, is actually discussing with states, is to remove right-of-way charges for telecom companies. A lot of states are charging as high as 5,000, others 3,000. Before we came on board this administration, it was at 145 naira per linear meter. Now we have made it to 0. So that is a collaborative approach, because the Zamfara state government wants to take full benefit and advantages of some of the federal government's program, like the National Broadband Alliance. If it's about 90,000 kilometers of fiber that is going to be laid, there are going to be considerations, for states that have the enabling environments, the right policies, the right frameworks that will support the deployment of this infrastructure without any hindrance. And again, the private sector is equally important. That is why we are spreading tentacles, across the board. We are not just collaborating with the federal government, we are collaborating with private sector companies. And within the Zamfara state itself, we are collaborating with local partners to see how we can develop that partnership ecosystem, because it's a chain. you can't claim to do things all alone by yourself. You have to rely on a service provider. You have to rely on an equipment supplier, equipment manufacturer. All of these things need to be, is like the big piece of the puzzle. You have to bring in the pieces together for you to have that desired outcome that you expect.
Another thing which is common is the issue of security, because even if you have this wonderful infrastructure there and it's available for adoption, businesses actually have to come there to do business. And we know that for a lot of businesses, individuals in the country now, a state that like Zamfara state, I mean, not even looking at closely at it, but the fact that it's in the northern part of the country is a scare when it comes to security. So how do you handle that as a state government?
You're absolutely right. You know, the issue of security has lingered for quite some time, for over a decade now. And I think we have not had an administration that has tackled, that has faced this monster head on than what this administration is doing. First of all, we are not negotiating with any form of, criminality or bandits or kidnappers and all of that. And that is because the state is winning decisively to deal with these criminal elements. That is on one hand. On the other hand, it does not matter whether Zamfara State at the moment is doing much, much better than some states that are not experiencing, security issues when it comes to the development of ICT, and overall the telecom infrastructure. So our problems shouldn't define, who we are. Rather, they should embolden us to take, bold initiatives that will bring us out of the. And the governor has consistently talked about deploying technology in solving even the security issues. And I believe the state government, in collaboration with the relevant security forces, are doing exactly the same in terms of intelligence gathering, in terms of, sharing information. And we are winning massively in this fight. That is on one hand. On the other hand, despite all of these security challenges, we are recording a lot of successes. That is why you have companies actually getting interest in coming to Zamfara to invest in the fiber, business. So if we have companies that are interested in doing business with Zamfara State because of the favorable policies, because of the, frameworks that we have put in place that are incentivizing and attracting investment, then I think we are doing things right. And again, we have just benefited from the SABA program. Zamfara State, the last disbursement that was made, we had about $6 million US, and part of that incentive is the waiver of that right-of-way charges for telecom companies, which is DLI2, investment in fiber infrastructure. So the results are actually showing that despite the security challenges, Zamfara State is still coming out of this, strong, more determined, and I believe we are doing very, very much better than some of our peers that are not experiencing similar challenges that we are facing.
Because I was going to say, Dr. Gajam, that, I mean, if you have technology, that should also make a difference in your battle against insecurity. I mean, if you have adopted, you have the infrastructure and the framework available, I mean, we should see a difference even in the fight against insecurity, because it's supposed to also help in that area.
You are absolutely right. So there are certain matters that are not for public consumption, especially because of the sensitive nature of operations. But what I can tell you is that at the moment we are working, to upgrade and equip our command and control center in the government house. The governor has already secured the buy-in of the governor because he recognizes that technology is important. Now, what this platform does is to report security incidents across the state. We call it the Tactical Security Reporting and Information Management System, where you have citizens actively reporting, because some of the problems that we face, you have communities and villages attacked, and then they go unreported until 24 hours or 48 hours later before the security forces are actually alerted. So what this platform intends to do is to use real-time data analytics to monitor security incidents across the state, particularly in hotspot areas. And that is the reason why citizens can actually pick up a phone. You don't even need a SIM card or a smartphone to do that. All you need to do is, dial 112. We're actually going to leverage NCC's toll line, which is 112. We have had that discussion with the management of the NCC, and they are willing to transfer that infrastructure to Zamfara state government so that we can route our calls to the command and control center and monitor and track every call that comes in. That is the first way to go. Intelligence is important, data is important. It will also help relevant, decision makers to arrive at, data-driven decisions about some of the decisions that they need to take, when confronting these security challenges. Again, like I mentioned, there is a lot of sensitive information that does not need to be divulged, but I believe our troops, the security forces, in active collaboration with the state government, with all the support from the state governor, are working harmoniously to bring an end to this, and we are winning the war. We are taking it to their villages and settlements, and we are also gathering intelligence about arms transport and all of that. Every day there is one, ambush or the other of some of these perpetrators transporting arms to their accomplices. So intelligence is important, and technology, you cannot discountenance the role of technology in all of this.
Yeah, obviously, and that's why the part of NBAN that talks about schools, being empowered with this infrastructure is also very important. What's the status of, schools getting this adoption, internet and all of that? What's the status at this time?
So just earlier today, we had a briefing with relevant stakeholders because we have an upcoming stakeholder engagement on the Zamfara digital literacy framework. We are inviting relevant stakeholders to come and share ideas on the draft document that we have produced. And we are inviting relevant federal government agencies like NIGCOMSAT, like the NCC, like NIDDA, the Nigeria Data Protection Agency, to see how we can collaborate to bring that digital literacy framework to life. This framework typically has 4 strategic pillars. The first one is to ensure that all students at all levels of education are digitally literate before they graduate. And that includes providing the backbone infrastructure to make sure that there is internet connectivity. We have over 200 secondary schools at the moment. I have just finished a meeting with the Commissioner of Education. They are furnishing us with that data so that we can pilot the program once that framework is approved. And this will be in active collaboration with the Galaxy backbone in terms of fiber in urban and semi-urban centers where they have their points, and then the NAGCOMSAT, where we need to take internet to remote areas, leveraging on the satellite communication. That is the first strategic pillar. The second strategic pillar is to ensure that all our civil servants across local and state governments are also digitally literate, leveraging on the electronic governance infrastructure that we are setting up to make sure that we have done away with a lot of paperwork and files that hinder, that pose serious bureaucratic bottlenecks to the business of governance. Then, of course, the larger society as well. We are training different artisans. The target is to train 10,000 in the next 4 or 5 years, entrepreneurs, petty traders, in one form of digital skill or the other, to ensure that they scale up their businesses. And then, of course, the last one is to create the budgetary line to support the implementation of this framework. So we are very deliberate in terms of what we need to do. We have a very clear strategy, and His Excellency, the Executive Governor, is very keen. ICT is one of his top priorities because he was a banker in his former life. He understands the critical role of IT in the delivery of services. So it couldn't have come at a better time. The question you have asked about the connectivity and schools, we are working with NIGCOMSAT. We are also working with the Digital Economy Department of the NCC to see how we can partner and promote digital literacy programs across all other sectors, not just in our schools, not just in the service. because we want an inclusive approach to this. You can't move and leave one sector behind and take a few others with you. So it is a holistic approach, and we are very, very deliberate about it.
All right, thank you so much, and we wish you the best, in this move that you have started. Dr. Habib Gajam, the Executive Secretary of Zamfara Information Technology and Development Agency.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Let's take a break now. When we come back, we'll head to the market. Intraday numbers await you on the other side here on Business Incorporated. Stay with us.